There's something primordially calming about comets, isn't there? These eternal wanderers, icy phantoms that come from the unimaginable darkness at the edges of our system. We've grown accustomed to thinking of them with a certain fondness. Dirty snowballs, as the astronomer Fred Whipple nicknamed them back in the mid-20th century. A mixture of frozen water, gases, dust, and rock. Relics left over from the birth of the sun and the planets. Each of their visits is a greeting from the deep past, from a time when our Earth was still a molten, lifeless sphere. They carry within them our cosmic lineage. We have studied their spectra. We have landed probes on them. We thought we understood their nature. We thought we knew. What hubris. What a dazzling, almost childlike delusion. We built the greatest instruments in human history to peer beyond the horizon, to confirm our cozy, elegant theories. And one of those instruments, the most perfect eye humanity has ever possessed, looked at another icy wanderer, and what it saw confirmed nothing. On the contrary, it cast doubt on everything. Today, we will speak of silence. Of the deafening silence that has fallen over mission control centers and astrophysics institutes around the world. We will speak of the object 3I Atlas, and of what it sent us. Or rather, what it left behind. It all began, as it so often does, with routine. The Atlas Automated Sky Survey located in Hawaii detected a faint, fast-moving object. Calculations of its trajectory left no doubt. Its orbit was hyperbolic. This meant one thing. The visitor had not come from our solar system. It had come from the interstellar abyss. It was assigned the index I for interstellar. It was only the third such confirmed visitor in the history of observation. The third. They named it 3I Atlas. Astronomers all over the world pointed their telescopes at it. It was strange. Too dim for its size. Its coma, the cloud of gas and dust around its nucleus, behaved unpredictably, sometimes flaring up, sometimes almost vanishing. But most importantly, its path took it very close to the sun, and then, almost perfectly into the observation point of our new cosmic sentinel, the James Webb Space Telescope. This was a unique opportunity. Never before had we had the chance to study an interstellar object with the incredible detail that Webb is capable of. Its sensitive infrared detectors, cooled to near absolute zero, could see what is hidden from all others, to see the chemical composition of primordial matter from another star system, to understand if the building blocks of worlds over there are similar to ours. The observation plan was approved months in advance. Teams of scientists waited with bated breath for 3I Atlas to reach the right point. None of them expected a sensation. No one. They expected confirmations. New data to refine existing models. Boring, painstaking, fundamental science. But the universe had other plans. A few weeks before the Webb observations, something happened that sometimes happens to comets. As it approached the sun, under the influence of its heat and gravity, 3I Atlas disintegrated. The nucleus couldn't hold. It broke apart. For many, this was a disappointment. It's always more interesting to study an intact object, but not for the Webb team. Now they had an even more interesting task, to study not just the coma, but the very insides of the interstellar wanderer, laid bare by its demise, to see what had been hidden under an icy crust for millions of years. And so, at the appointed hour, the golden honeycomb mirror of the James Webb Space Telescope turned towards the point in space where the comet had recently been, and where now, a cloud of its debris was slowly expanding. Thousands of seconds of precious observation time were spent collecting photons that had traveled from this cosmic tombstone. The data began to flow to Earth. and the silence I spoke of began to thicken. For you to understand the scale of the shock, let's return to our textbooks for a moment. What is the breakup of a comet? It is a chaotic, disordered process. Imagine blowing up a block of ice packed with dirt and rocks. What would you get? A cloud of irregularly shaped fragments flying apart by inertia. Large pieces, small pieces, dust, gas. Chaos. Entropy in its purest form. All our models, all previous observations of cometary breakups showed this exact picture. A picture of random, uncontrolled destruction. The first image from the near-infrared camera, NIRCam, arrived on the monitors at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore late at night. And the people who saw it first thought it was a glitch, a calibration artifact, a software error. Because the screen showed no chaos, it showed order. Instead of a formless cloud of dust and ice, Webb saw almost perfect concentric shells. Dozens of the finest glowing spheres nested one inside the other like a matryoshka doll. They expanded from the center of the breakup with mathematically calculated precision. And between them, emptiness. Perfectly dark gaps. But that was only the beginning. When the mid-infrared instrument, MIRI, which can discern the thermal radiation of objects, came into play, the picture became even more insane. Inside these shells, in these seemingly empty gaps, MIRI saw a structure, the finest filaments connecting the shells, and these filaments formed perfect hexagons, a honeycomb, exactly like the shape of the segments of the telescope's own primary mirror. It was nonsense. It was impossible. Nature does not create straight lines and perfect circles on such a scale, not after an explosion. This violated the basic principles of gas dynamics and celestial mechanics. The debris cloud behaved not like the result of a breakup, but like the result of a deployment. As if someone had pushed a button and a complex structure began to unfold neatly, layer by layer, into space. But the geometry was only the first part of the puzzle. Next came spectroscopy. Webb is not just a camera, it is an incredibly powerful spectrograph, capable of splitting the light from any object into a rainbow and, by the dark absorption lines within it, determining its exact chemical composition. Scientists expected to see familiar signatures: water, carbon monoxide, methane, silicates, everything that ordinary comets are made of. They saw that. But among the familiar lines were some that shouldn't have been there. Absorption lines corresponding to heavy refractory metals, tungsten, osmium, rhenium, in quantities tens of times greater than any conceivable concentration in the interstellar medium. Furthermore, isotopic analysis showed that the ratio of tungsten isotopes did not correspond to any known natural source. Not the products of supernova explosions, nor the results of neutron star mergers. It was artificial, as if someone had deliberately enriched the material with one specific stable isotope. And then came the third blow, the most devastating one: thermodynamics. The MIRI instrument doesn't just see structures, it measures their temperature. And the data it sent back made physicists around the world clutch their heads. The comet's fragments were colder than the surrounding cosmic vacuum. Let me repeat that. The objects, which only a few weeks ago had been under the dazzling rays of the sun, were several degrees colder than the cosmic microwave background radiation. Their temperature was below minus 270 degrees Celsius. They weren't just cooling down. They were actively cooling themselves. They were entropic refrigerators. This is a direct, tangible, instrument-recorded violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Heat cannot spontaneously flow from a colder body to a hotter one. A system cannot spontaneously decrease its entropy without an external energy input. And these fragments were doing just that. They were casting heat out into the void, becoming colder than the void itself. This was the finale. Geometry chemistry, physics. The three pillars of our understanding of the universe had been overturned by a single observation of a disintegrating piece of interstellar ice. The data was rechecked dozens of times. They looked for errors, glitches, unaccounted for factors. Nothing. The James Webb Space Telescope was working flawlessly. It had simply shown what was really there, and the scientists were left alone with the fact that their minds refused to accept. 3I Atlas was not a comet. So what was it? This is where we leave the solid ground of facts and enter the treacherous territory of hypotheses. And the further we go, the more unsettling they become. Hypothesis 1, the most conservative one. It is held by the skeptics and those who are desperately trying to save the familiar picture of the world. It goes like this. We have encountered a completely new, unknown natural phenomenon. Perhaps there are conditions in the interstellar medium, in protoplanetary disks around other stars, where complex crystalline structures of frozen gases and metallic dust can form. Perhaps under the influence of powerful magnetic fields, these structures acquire an orderliness, and the anomalous chemistry is simply a feature of the part of the galaxy this object came from. As for the violation of thermodynamics, perhaps we are observing some macroscopic quantum effect that we are not yet able to describe. A phase transition of matter into a hitherto unknown state. This is a convenient hypothesis. It postpones the problem. It says, we just don't know enough yet. It maintains the status quo, but it doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain the mathematical precision of the structures. It doesn't explain the isotopic anomaly. It asks us to believe in a whole chain of incredible coincidences. Is it just a coincidence? Hypothesis 2, a bolder one. It ventures into territory that serious science usually avoids. What if it is a form of life? Not biological, not carbon-based, silicon-based, crystalline. A life form for which the icy vacuum is its native element. A structure capable of self-organization and self-reproduction. For it, disintegration under the influence of a star is not death, but a method of reproduction. An unfolding, like a flower. The release of spores, these geometric constructions, which then, over millions of years, can drift to other star systems. And the anomalous cooling is simply a byproduct of its metabolism, a way to maintain its internal structure in a superconducting, ultra-stable state. This is a beautiful, almost poetic idea. It expands the very concept of life to limits we could not have imagined. It turns the cold, dead universe into a potential garden of crystalline creatures. But it too has a weakness. Why would this life form need artificial tungsten isotopes? Why would it need such complexity, which seems excessive for mere survival? And this leads us to the third hypothesis, the one no one mentions at official conferences, the one discussed in whispers in the hallways, the one that makes gray-haired professors stare at the night sky on sleepless nights with entirely new feelings, with a mixture of awe and primal terror. The hypothesis that 3I Atlas is an artifact, that it is something made intentionally. In this paradigm, everything instantly falls into place. The perfect geometry is not a natural anomaly, but an engineering solution, a support structure, a deploying antenna, or a map. A three-dimensional map, unfurled in space, where the position of each sphere and each filament means something. The anomalous chemical composition is not a coincidence, but a building material. Super strong and refractory alloys capable of withstanding millions of years of interstellar travel. The artificial isotopes are a marker, a signature, a seal of quality that says, this was made by us. And the violation of the second law of thermodynamics is a working engine, or a computer, or a life support system. Something that continued to function even after the outer shell was destroyed. Something that is still executing its program. What was that program? What was the purpose of this messenger? Was it a reconnaissance probe that, having completed its mission to collect data about our system, self-destructed, leaving behind only a data set for its masters? Was it a capsule, a kind of Noah's Ark, carrying information or even the seeds of another civilization, and its breakup was not death, but arrival? Activation. The scattering of seeds in a new, hospitable system. Or was it something far more disturbing? Was it a weapon? A warning system? A border buoy that upon crossing a certain gravitational zone sent a signal. Someone is here. They are developing. They have started to look at the stars. We don't know. We only have these stunning images. Images of perfect spheres and hexagons slowly melting into the void. Images that are, in essence, the most important discovery in human history. And at the same time, the most classified. Because, as you can imagine, such information cannot simply be released to the public. It could topple religions, economies, our very sense of our place in the universe. It carries an existential risk for which we are simply not ready. For centuries we have gazed at the heavens, asking the same question: are we alone in the universe? We sent out radio signals, hearing only cosmic noise in reply. The Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? Weighed on us with its insolvability. We searched for intelligent brethren, expecting to hear their voices. But what if they never intended to speak? What if their language is not radio waves but geometry? Not mathematics and equations, but mathematics embodied in matter? What if the universe is not silent, but is speaking to us in a geometric whisper? And we, with our primitive technology, have simply been deaf until now. The object 3I Atlas came and went, or rather, it stayed. It is now a part of our solar system. Billions of its microscopic fragments, each of which may be a carrier of information, are now slowly settling on the planets, including our own. They are already here, among us. The James Webb Space Telescope showed us something we were not supposed to see. Or on the contrary, something we were meant to be shown. It opened Pandora's box. And now, we face a choice. To pretend we saw nothing and continue to live in the cozy world of our old theories. Or to admit that the game has changed. That we are no longer lonely children in our sandbox. That in the vast, dark ocean of space, there are others. And one of them has just thrown a bottle with a message right at our feet. And we have no idea what it says. An invitation or a warning. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what is out there in the depths of space, but what will happen now, here, on this small, blue planet. Now that we know. What do you think? What did the James Webb Space Telescope really send us? Another mystery of nature? Or the first meaningful signal? If you, like me, are haunted by this abyss of questions, subscribe to the channel. We will continue our journey to the frontiers of knowledge, together.